Well, hello, Internet. So, have you ever waited for a movie to come out and you're just waiting for it to come and come and come, and you're thinking about it all the time and you're excited for it, and then it finally comes? What's going on? So today I'm talking about a film that I have been looking forward to for quite some time, and that film is The Green Knight, directed by David Lowery. So as you all know, I'm a big fan of A24, like a lot of you I'm sure out there are a fan of A24, because they produce some really fantastic films and they allow some great directors to work with them. And I think David Lowery is a fantastic director. I really enjoyed his film A Ghost Story. He's obviously had a very prolific career working with a lot of incredible actors and actresses. And so I was really excited a couple years ago when this trailer was released, and then because of COVID it was pushed back and pushed back and pushed back, and I waited until it was released on Blu-ray to see it. This movie, as of now, is my favorite film of 2021. And I think it's going to be really fucking hard to beat because the movie is fantastic. It's really well produced, really well made, and I'm looking forward to talking about it now. So The Green Knight is the story of Sir Gawain, a knight in this small community of this king and queen who aren't mentioned, but I think we can imply who the king is. And he lives in this place with his mother, who is a witch, and she's called a witch very early on into the film, and the film introduces his character in a brothel with this woman, and he's clearly just like kind of a schlubby dude, and he just does what he wants, not really anything super interesting about him. A woman in the brothel early on asks him, like, are you a knight yet? No, I'm not a knight yet. No, I haven't become a knight yet. And he goes to the king and queen's party for Christmas, which, yes, this is a Christmas film. It is December. I want to talk about Christmas films, and yes, it is canon that The Green Knight is a Christmas film. So he goes to this event and he talks to the king and queen, and the king actually invites him to sit at the table with him because you find out that the king is his mother's brother. And it's really fascinating because he asks him to tell him a tale, and he wants to hear like a really great story, and he says, I don't really have anything interesting to say. And I think that's interesting, and it's really indicative of his character and the overall story. So they're having this party, and the doors fling open, and this giant tree-like creature walks in, who is the Green Knight. And he says he wants to play a game, and his game is any of the knights in the room can come and strike him once. And he says if any of them can strike him once, that in a year's time that knight should come to him and let him reciprocate the blow. And so, you know, you can interpret what that means. Why would someone choose to do this? Is it for honor? What's it going to be? And none of the knights accept the challenge. So Dev Patel finally says, I'll do it. And he jumps over the table, and the knight just sort of sets his weapons down and sits there. And part of the challenge is that if you strike the knight, you get to have his axe for a year. And he sets it down, kneels down, and Dev Patel jumps over and cuts his head off. And the Green Knight pulls his head up, walks out and says, see you in a year, and leaves. And so the movie is about Dev Patel's journey a year later to go find the Green Knight and to suffer his demise or whatever might come to him. So yeah, this movie is phenomenal, and it really feels like you're watching a work of literature on screen. And I was really appreciative of that. I know I've read some reviews that people say this movie is really confusing and hard to decipher, but it's really not. There's room for interpretation, obviously, in the third act, but I feel like, you know, most of it is implied through the storytelling and the visuals and the context clues given through the cinematography. And I really liked that about this movie. And I think the thing that probably upset a lot of people is that they thought it was going to be this really large-scale, violent film. And there's moments of violence in it, but A24 is great about producing these films that are small-scale character studies. And that's what it is at the end of the day. It's a small-scale Arthurian character study, and it's beautiful. First thing I want to talk about is the cinematography. This movie is fucking gorgeous. It looks beautiful. The color palettes in this are great. There's really a heavy focus on green, and there's a moment when Dev Patel's traveling. He meets Joel Edgerton and Alicia Vikander. and they're in this dining hall, and Alicia Vikander's character starts talking about the color green and all of the things it symbolizes, which is really indicative of the overall story and how that color plays into the film. And what I thought was really cool is the focus on really saturating those greens. And even in moments in the film where, you know, colors are really desaturated, the green always pops and is really prevalent in the storytelling and everything about the film. And the way these shots are framed, it's just beautiful to look at. There's really expansive shots. There's a few long take sequences that are really beautiful, and it showcases David Lowery's talent as a director. There's some really cool moments in this of CGI. I know there's a lot of people that have complained about it, but there's a fox character that's introduced that does speak at a point during the movie, and it didn't take away from me at all. It just felt like a really neat fantasy element. There's giants in the film that just look great. I love the way the giants look. There's a supernatural element introduced in the midway point of the film that's executed really well, and I loved all the visual stuff with that. And this movie is just about a character's journey and the things that happen to him along the way. Like I said, the performances are all great. Dev Patel is obviously the standout. He is who we're following most of the film, but you have, like I said, Joel Edgerton, who plays just this absolutely insane character who's fantastic. Alicia Vikander is great as usual. And you also have Barry Keoghan, who is wild, and his role in this movie is awesome. I really liked him a lot. And the performances really add to that overall atmosphere because you're looking at a period piece film. This is a movie that's very specific to a certain time period. You want to nail the dialogue, you want to nail the costumes, you want to nail the atmosphere, the weaponry, everything about this movie, and it all works, and it works very, very well. The soundtrack is also incredible. There's a lot of music with Old English in it. There's a lot of instrumental music. There's great sound design. It feels very lush. When you're in the forest with Dev Patel's character, you can really hear the trees and the wind, and it creates that fantasy-like atmosphere, but doing it on a small scale, which is great because, you know, whenever you think of fantasy-like films, I think of like big budget schlock or Lord of the Rings, which is like, there's really not a ton of in between. You had Game of Thrones, which was really fantastic for a while, but it's really hard to find a film like this that's told on a more small scale atmosphere. And I liked that because it leaves so much more attention to detail as far as like the character study as a whole. I've seen a lot of people say that this movie doesn't have good attachment to the characters, and I think that's bullshit. I think you're given so much insight into the dynamic of Dev Patel's character with his mother, his own way that he views himself personally, his relationship with the king and the queen, and just like these things introduced to him along the way that really shape him as a person. I think it's a great character study, and that third act leaves a really open-ended interpretation for you to understand what the story's about. I don't want to get into it very heavily because I can tell you what I think the film represents, but it's so much more fun to piece that together in your head and understand what the filmmaker was going for. And yeah, this movie is gonna probably be my favorite film of the year, and it's gonna be really hard to top, and I think everybody needs to see it. So have you seen The Green Knight yet? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was fucking phenomenal, and I think that it's going to be one of my favorite A24 films. I think it's going to be a film I revisit quite frequently, and I hope that it gets some Oscar nominations because I think it really fucking deserves it. As always, internet, if you could like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot. I've got plenty of content I've released in the past couple of months. A lot of things that you can look through, revisit. I've got a lot of new content planned in the future, and I look forward to getting that out there for you guys. As always, internet, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.